Call the January 3rd Common Council meeting order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Olson.
Here.
Alderman Holfer.
Here.
Alderwoman Eichman. Here. Alderwoman Wilhelm. Here. Alderwoman Hanneman. Here. Alderman Barber.
Here.
Alderman Nelson.
Here.
We have quorum. Please rise and join the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I do want to wish our Director of Finance and Treasurer all the best in her future endeavors. For the time she's been here, she's been a tremendous asset and a wonderful personality to have around City Hall. We'll miss you, Denise. For those of you on the council, please take a minute in the next few days to go and wish Denise well. With that, I will move to the citizens' comment period. Any citizen wishing to speak, please rise, come forward, give us your name and address, and tell us what you want to tell us. Anyone? Ma'am, good morning. Good afternoon. Jeez, it's morning.
My name is Leslie Sharpella. I'm with PSG. The address is 448 Falcon Ridge Drive, Burlington, Wisconsin, 53105. I'm just here as a representative for Spellman Trailers regarding item G7 on the agenda. It's regarding the vacation of the right-of-way along Ryan Road between 58th and 60th Street. And I spoke last time and I gave a little bit of background. I don't want to be too redundant, but just wanted to add a little bit more information. So this concept of the vacation of the right-of-way initially came up when we were looking for a way to expand to meet the needs of the business's growth and looking to ideally expand to the north, but not meeting setback requirements. So in conversations with the city, it seemed like the vacation of the right-of-way might be a natural fit, just given that it doesn't really serve any purpose at this point other than providing driveway for Spellman Trailers. Their objective in growing the facility is, sort of to add around 1,500 to 2,500 square feet. They're looking at a $250,000 to $350,000 investment, being able to add 2 to 4 employees, and really set up the business for the growth, well into the future. As many of you know, they've been there for decades and need to just evolve as the business grows. Staff has provided a recommendation tonight that that right-of-way be vacated without a requirement for monetary compensation. And we appreciate that recommendation and hope that the council will be in agreement with it. Both the precedent that monetary compensation hasn't been required for right-of-ways in the past, as well as this just sort of seems like an opportunity to clean up both the arrangement and the documentation to the benefit of all the parties involved to reflect what the reality with this right-of-way is. So we know that the city has a sign on what is currently the Spellman Trailer property without any easement, and there is the opportunity for us to clean that up and provide the appropriate easement documentation with all of this. We know that the Spellmans have been maintaining that right-of-way since they estimate 1987, and high, very conservative estimates would say they've spent $35,000 during that period of time just on salting and snow in an area that they don't really have any legal obligation to maintain. But they're more than happy to do that if that right-of-way is vacated and just sort of continue to treat that as their own driveway. So we're sort of looking at it as an opportunity to just clean up all the documentation related to that. Regarding the signage easements, regarding the combination of the lots as is written in the revised resolution that we saw just a couple hours ago this afternoon, we're in agreement with all of that and happy to do that as well. So we appreciate your consideration on this and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Mr. Spellman, good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Just talked about this a little bit last time, but Dad purchased the property in 1974. I've worked with Dad since 1973. We're on to our 3rd generation. My daughter Jen is here, and my son Matt did not make it, but they've been here working with me for over 20-some years. In that time period, our office footprint never changed. So everything that we've done with different employees and different economic times, we've worked with what we had inside. This would allow us to improve our appearance, increase our space inside, allow better efficiencies for the employees, for who we have and who we like to have. I think that's about enough. Thank you for listening and your consideration. Oh, I'm sorry. Elvin Spellman, owner of Spellman Trailers, 5921 West Ryan Road. I forgot that last name too.
And Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Seeing no one else rise, I will close the citizens' comment period. Let's do approval in minutes, and then I'll change the order of the agenda. I move to the approval of the regular common council meeting minutes of December 20th. Any additions or corrections? Barbara and Eichmann, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Without objection, I'd move to G7, a resolution to vacate Service Road at South 60th Street to 58th Street on the south side of Ryan Road. Alderwoman Hanneman. Okay, we got a city attorney. Now who do I do this? It was Nelson, and, well, let's do Alderwoman Wilhelm. Mr. City Attorney. Hanneman and, okay, I'll go with Nelson. Wait. Okay,
At your places this evening is a redraft of the motion along with the redrafted resolution as stated during the citizen comment period. So the redrafted motion is what staff is recommending.
that is your motion, Alderwoman Hanneman?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Nelson? With that, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion. A motion to introduce a resolution to vacate Service Road from South 60th Street to South 58th Street, located on the south side of West Ryan Road between 60th Street and South 58th Street, part of the northwest 1/4 of Section 26, Township 5, Range 21 East, City of Franklin, Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. Mr. City Attorney.
And process-wise, the subject matter will be back, a recording of the introduced resolution has to be accomplished with the Register of Deeds, list pendants filed, et cetera, and then it'll, with notices sent, it will return to the council with those other conditional items mentioned therein.
I don't remember if I did this. Motion carries 6 ayes, no noes, no absent, no abstentions. We move on to G1, discussion and possible action regarding correspondence from Supervisor Taylor regarding Resolution 2022-7863 relative to land for stormwater management plans in a new corporate park. Alderman Nelson.
Thank you. I'd like to ask County Supervisor Steve Taylor if he could join at the front table and suspend the rules so we can go back and forth with some questions. We're going to have a number of questions.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Welcome, Supervisor.
Is that? Hello. Evening. I'm here. Steve Taylor, 2012 West Hilltop Lane.
Alderman Nelson.
My plan tonight with bringing this forward was to get clarification. There's a lot of moving parts to this and a lot of questions that I'm sure all of us have. And I guess my opinion is that we would start by having the county supervisor kind of do a little bit of history before we go into this.
Thank you, Alderman Nelson. Well, I think you guys all received the letter that I sent. It's because the mayor at the last common council meeting said that nothing was in writing, so I put it in writing based on a timeline of what occurred. I feel it's pretty accurate. If someone disagrees, that's fine, and we can have that conversation. But the issue is, this was of an urgent matter, and then there was a very productive meeting, and that was in October. And then a couple months have gone by, and then there was nothing. I did have a conversation, like I said, with Alderwoman Hanneman, and she stated that she didn't have $700,000, which was what you said. And I said, okay, that's fine. And like I said, it was a really nice conversation, but I felt that, this was a resolution passed by this council, and there has been times where resolutions have been passed and then have not followed through on. And so, there's our thing-
Supervisor?
Yes.
I'd like you to list for me those times specifically, because that puts a question mark on all of my staff.
Well,
I
that's
don't
fine.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
So get me a list of
Sure.
all of the times.
we can do that.
Please do.
Absolutely.
And I noticed the grin to Alderman Wilhelm.
Yeah, well, I mean, Steve, you have a record of doing that, so we'll definitely point that out in the next few months. And that's not even, you can think it has something to do with staff, it has something to do with you and your leadership. So,
And I treat you with respect and call you a supervisor. Treat me with the same respect and call me Mr. Mayor.
I'm not calling you Mr. Mayor. I'll call you Mayor. Yeah, but I'm Mr. Mayor. I've actually called you Your Honor when I sat in that chair,
I recognize that. Please go ahead.
but you're not very honorable lately. So, so basically, it's up to the Common Council to make a decision on what they want to do. And it's either A, in the proposal what the city sent was they wanted 10 acres. And I told you where my position is. And, the Common Council and the county board operates totally differently. The mayor, you did talk to county executive and he said you need to work with the supervisor of the district, which is exactly what he told you regarding the previous supervisor, that wanted nothing to do with this project. I, on the other hand, am willing to do something with this project, and I'm looking at how to get things through the county board. That's why that proposal is on the table. If you don't want to do the work with Milwaukee County, then the alternative is purchase land off of Scott Biller for approximately $600,000 for about 5 acres. So that's $120,000 an acre. What I proposed is the 10 acres, permanent easement for $700,000. That's $70,000 an acre. And there's differences between giving $600,000 to a developer who's taking that money and leaving the city of Franklin and leaving Milwaukee County, and doing a deal with Milwaukee County where that money stays in Milwaukee County and half of which stays within the city of Franklin. So it was confusing to me of why the urgency kind of then just stopped when I believe you need the stormwater management to do the development. And if you don't, well, then what is option 3? If you're not going to go the biller route and you're not going to go the county route, well, then is not developing the third option, or is there something else that you're working on that the council is not aware of? Because no one seems to know that either. So does that answer your question, Alderman Nelson?
Alderman Nelson.
Yes, but I do have, I guess one of the biggest points that I like is the fact that we're going to be keeping half of that money in the parks that are used by our citizens.
Sure.
And that at this point with this proposal is about $350,000. And just if I get some examples of, okay, when someone says, well, the money's staying here, what does that mean exactly?
Sure. Well, there's basically the way I kind of structured this was I had to think of how to get this through the Milwaukee County Board, because I mean, for those that have been around, and the mayor, you know how difficult it is to sometimes work with Milwaukee County. You remember when we were both aldermen and there was a Ryan Creek Interceptor, and we needed an easement through county land to put that Ryan Creek Interceptor in. The county board voted no, and as a result, we had to go around Milwaukee County land at a bill of $1 million to the sewer district, to the taxpayers. And, if you take a look at the Rock Sports Complex and this, selling of a landfill with over $4 million of deferred maintenance and a methane system, you still had 7 supervisors vote no on getting rid of a landfill, which is now $250 million worth of economic development. So, and that's just a few of them that affected the city of Franklin. I can talk about ones all throughout Milwaukee County. So I thought, who should I work with on the board that has been, I would say, less willing to part with county assets? And so I'm on the Parks Commission with Felicia Martin, Supervisor Martin, and she's a stickler, but she, I brought her out here. I showed her around the city. I showed her where I thought money should be spent in Franklin. Like if we're to do this deal, because it is important, it's economic development. And I thought this was a way. So I partnered with her. And so half of the money would go to County Park in her district. The other half would stay here. So I thought, what areas in my district, in the 17th district, would benefit? And Grove Schmidt Park is one of them right off the bat. That is one of our county parks. There we would do some reforestation. There is some trail work that needs to be done, and a kind of building like a viewing platform so people with disabilities can actually see that lake. I think it's one of a handful of lakes in Milwaukee County, and there's a lot of people like to bird watch. And so having this platform built, that's where some of the money would go. Then you have Fitzsimmons Woods, which this one could be tricky because Milwaukee County only owns a portion of it. And then the rest of it's owned by the Milwaukee Land Conservancy. But here's this piece of woodland that really reminds me of Franklin Woods. And you know, Franklin Woods has that beautiful path that runs through it so people can enjoy it. And you don't even realize you're in the city of Franklin or Milwaukee County when you're in those woods. And I think Fitzsimmons Woods would be nice to maybe, if we could, to put some sort of passive trail through there as well, especially for the residents that live in that area that are being affected by the development off of Oakwood Road. That's been, you know, obviously it's been difficult. It was something I dealt with the entire time I was there, and I know Alderman Hanneman now. So that'd be something that they could actually, like this development, the results of this development would actually pay for, you know, a trail that would the residents in that area could actually use. And then if there was dollars left, or if we couldn't do Fitzsimmons Woods because of, you know, there's reasons that there's possibilities that we can't do anything there. You take a look at the Franklin Savannah, which happens to be in Supervisor Loxton's district, but an area that I represented for a long time. And that's right next to the what, 70 some acres that the council just bought for a future park. And I believe that there's been a kind of a trail system or a proposal of what it could look like to Milwaukee County. I thought I was told that, but you know, and we would obviously work together on that. So those would be like the three areas, and I think you could run through $350,000 pretty quick. But that's how I kind of structured this. And at the time, I thought it was a fair amount. And then I went through the Waukesha Water Utility deal where they needed an easement of 0.75 acres, and they offered Milwaukee County $100,000, so that's $135,000 an acre, and the county at Parks rejected it. And I was just like, this is like a health and safety issue. This has been going on for a long time. End result, for that 0.75 acres, it is $250,000, which is $333,000 an acre. So my $70,000 now, I question whether or not even something like that can get through the board, if that's the mindset. But to me, this is a partnership between the city of Franklin, Milwaukee County, economic development. That's how I looked at it.
Thank you.
Okay, I got Barbara, I got Hanneman and Wilhelm. Alderman Hanneman.
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree that that is a pretty accurate description of the communications that we've had on this particular issue. The reason it hasn't been brought forward for the rest of the council is I didn't quite feel it was ready for prime time discussion yet. But I'll clarify a few other things and points, because I do disagree in how I view this with the supervisor. Because you did start our opening meeting with, "You're not going to like this deal." You said that flat out. We're not going to like this deal. And I give the supervisor props for being very creative and you know, trying to find ways to maybe subsidize the parks budgets for Milwaukee County. But I do believe that the offer was presented pretty much as a take it or leave it deal at that point in time, with really no room for negotiations. And I want the council members to be clear that this proposal was $700,000 for an easement. We would not even own that property. And that's 10 acres of land that really is of no other economic value to Milwaukee County. So in my view, it almost amounts to a development tax by the county for this land. And so then in his letter, the supervisor references the Waukesha Water Project that has been in the news recently as a comparable deal to the verbal offer that he made. But I argue that there are some significant differences here. I believe right now Franklin is the third largest contributor to the Milwaukee County tax base. This Milwaukee County does not already pay into the Milwaukee County tax base. There's no other economic tax benefit to the county from the Waukesha water line easements, whereas it can be seen from the proposal that we sent to the county that there is a significant future economic tax base to be realized from this deal by the county that amounts to almost $600,000 annually at TID close. So since the time that we had our meeting in October, the mayor and staff have indicated to me that they are still exploring some alternative, far less expensive stormwater management options. And so while the supervisor did call me on December 2nd and we had the conversation, the indication was that he needed to know now. And obviously, I was not able to bring it to council prior to that period or after that period of time as I was out of town. I personally don't believe a $700,000 cash transfer to Milwaukee County for an easement is a good deal for the citizens of Franklin. It might be a good deal for the county. And the supervisor stated on record at the last meeting during citizen comment that the price for the easement has gone up. But then the letter dated December 27th, the price of $700,000 is still maintained. So there's still, it's a misunderstanding is what the offer actually is, regardless of the fact that I don't think it's a good deal for us. However, if another alder here feels that this is a good deal for the city, by all means make a motion. But today I can't support it.
Alderman Wilhelm.
Okay, so I wanted to address a couple of things. So I haven't been involved in this. So first of all, my question I have is the proposal that's written in front of us in the packet. It's not dated. What was the date of it and who authored it?
August 23rd, 2022.
Okay, so that's based on the cover letter was the date? Okay,
It's one document.
okay,
And I wrote it, and it was revised and edited by staff, and I believe Alderwoman Hanneman had a
Okay.
kick in it.
thank you for a clarification. And I realize you did have a previous motion to allow you to do negotiations, and you used this for that purpose. But a couple of things that stood out to me. When this whole proposal of this park was coming up, and we were going to market this proposal, I said, you do not have 521 acres here, and that should be adjusted. You can't give figures to Milwaukee County based on money and investment and all that, based on a figure that is not what's actually developable at that corporate park. There may be 521 acres in the park, but if you took away all the undevelopable and the places that probably aren't going to move, and on page 16 of the report, it says that lot south of Biller's development on Hickory Street will not develop as fast and maybe not during this TID8's lifetime. So that's a pretty big hunk of property that would come out of there as well. So we should start off with figures that are completely accurate in a negotiation, and I haven't looked at those, so I don't know where we're at, but I know the acreage is not 100% accurate. So let's just say we have 521 acres, and we've been working on this for many, many years. I don't know how we boxed ourselves into a corner and didn't accommodate for a stormwater management basin in a business park. Everyone knows there's MMSD rules on what roads and impervious surface and things we have to meet, and to get this far along on a business park and not know where to put the stormwater basin is, I don't know what to say about that. The other comment was that I heard was the land had zero economic value for, as parkland. And I would disagree. Parkland has economic value to its residents. And if not for flood storage alone, which is a very costly endeavor to deal with flooding. The count, and is to say that this is, no value for the Franklin citizens, I would say county are also citizens of Franklin, so they are one and the same. They're not only county residents and Franklin residents, but they are both. I have no problem with the idea that we would give the county funding for parkland, because they don't typically just give away parkland. I understand the county's need to want to say, well, we have parkland, we hang on to the parkland, or if we try to buy parkland, or maybe they want to negotiate a different piece like they did over on Oak Creek when they made a trade of parkland for parkland type of situation. But I don't have any problem with, if we're not going to trade, to have some kind of compensation. I don't know if the dollars amounts are appropriate. I haven't spent a lot of time on the financials on this. I also think that having it come back to the city is very creative and I think very appreciative. So obviously, if there's a problem with stormwater and we need to resolve it, somebody needs to get creative and come up with it. I'm not going to be the one to come up with that. You have an option here. If somebody has a better idea, I guess we should hear it. But so far, I'm not hearing any better ideas or any other options. So what are we going to do? We're going to eat up the business park property, as Supervisor Taylor said? Or are we going to try to come up with some negotiated terms? Continue on? I guess, Mayor, since you were directed by the council to work on this, I'm fine with you continuing to work on that somehow. Maybe you have some ideas that you can share with council on what you think what direction we should take.
Well, I don't think we ought to be writing a check today. There's no way this is ready for any decision.
No, I think
This
the
is a,
council has a
excuse me,
statement.
Alderman.
Right.
This is a 2025 build. We don't need to do anything for another 2 years. Supervisor Taylor suggested that it was a big hurry. Got to strike while the iron was hot. You were a new supervisor, ready to get something done. I wanted to take advantage of that. That was the purpose in getting something done. I direct everybody to the letter I wrote. The last, third to the last paragraph. And this is significant. Our proposal represents a break in traditional activity for Milwaukee County. Participation will show the rest of the county, as well as state government, that the county is now looking at a business aspect of holding land and active assistance in economic development projects that will generate new growth and new taxes.
Which letter is this, Your Honor?
The cover letter with the proposal, that one right there. Third paragraph from the end. So that's important. What the intention of this is, yes, to get partnership with the county, because the county is a 1/3 benefactor of this project. And the county, as a tradition, they're just not geared up for it, don't participate in the construction of any TIF district. They just don't, because they're not geared up for it. So we're doing all of that expense. If we took the county's position where you had to pay for land, then we would charge the TIF district for Elm Road, because the city of Franklin owns Elm Road. That's what the county's asking us to do. Instead, the city has donated Elm Road because we want the development. That's what we're asking the county. So the bottom line here is a referral to staff for continuing discussion and financial analysis and engineering analysis. The next step for this, and we do have other options, by the way, the next step for this is to invest a little bit of money and do some engineering not only on this project proposal, but on the other that we have to discuss at some point in the future. But as you all know, you don't come to the common council with like this, or this, because you'll never get a decision. You come with this or this, and we don't have that.
Your Honor,
Supervisor Taylor.
I'm looking at the cover letter that was written to Guy Smith, and the third paragraph says, as in all economic developments, opportunities, time is of the essence.
I'm sorry.
Let us know what help you need in coming to approval quickly. So, I mean, I see time is of the essence and quickly, so that's why I said, this was an urgent matter that you and I were talking about months before I was on the county board. I mean, this was like the summer before, because you were talking about Supervisor Loxton and not getting anywhere, and we were talking during the redistricting and all that stuff. And so when I mean, that's what's in here. I'm not
I
making
don't have
that
that
up.
letter, I apologize.
Okay,
I'm
I'm not
talking
making
about
that
the
up. And then,
county exec letter.
and then if I can just, to a point that, what? August 23rd. Yeah. Alderwoman Wilhelm said, she talked about Oak Creek. Well, that was a 2-to-1 land swap, and I just didn't want that, and that was my district. And so we made the developer, and we're still working on it, so things do take time. Well, I was gone for 4 years, but, because that was the last vote I cast, was they're supposed to build, the developer, and the money is there to do a new county park operated and managed by the city of Oak Creek. And that was a part of that deal, and that was, $400,000 or $500,000 that is going to be committed to that park. And I think I brought that up in the meeting. And when you take a look at, what the state of Wisconsin, we're asking for more revenue and things like that. I think the mayor said that, I was kind of alluding to that fact. I think, bad negotiating by the county is one of the problems, one of the reasons why we're in part of the financial situation we're at. I go back to the Falk Park deal, the land swap there, where Northwestern Mutual owned this woodland that was never going to be cut down, but gave that to Milwaukee County. And what did Milwaukee County get in return? Or what did Milwaukee County get in return? Where IKEA is now. You know how many millions of dollars that land was sold for by Northwestern Mutual? And all they did was say, here's some woodland that you have no money to do anything with, and we haven't, and it's been over a decade. You have no money to do anything with those woods. They were going to be here regardless, but we suckered you into taking it, and we made millions of dollars in selling that land where you have IKEA and everything that's being built there. And that's just one of many times the county has done that. And so the way I looked at it and the way I think I've explained, my theory of when you look at economic development, you look at partnerships, the county, if they have assets, they should be able to get something for that. And that's why this is the negotiating tactic I've taken, whether it was Oak Creek and now this. And even with the Ballpark Commons development, that was $4 million that the county got out of having to put in a methane system. You guys could have said, the city could have said, we could have said, you do that first, and then we'll take the land. But the developer didn't do that. So, and I think Alderwoman Hanneman, you mentioned, this price is the price. What I think I meant to say, or it didn't come out correctly, is there's nothing to say that when it goes to the county board, that the same thing doesn't happen that happened to Waukesha, and that number just changes. So it may not be of a essence, time is the essence now for whatever reason, but, I have a supervisor that has some pull as well, and I think the two of us together can get it done. So that's kind of why now is the time to do it, in my estimation. And I guess if I was the council, I'd want to know what this third option is that you're working on that's less expensive. These are things that this body should be aware of. Not to say that you're not sharing it with them, but without putting it on the agenda, from the outside looking in, you see A is Biller, B is the county, that's all that's there. And if there's a third option, why aren't they aware of it? That's all. Thank you.
I do want to bring out another point. If you look at page, we didn't number these pages. The opportunity here for Milwaukee County, were they to say, were the proposal that we offered them agreed to, where they grant us an easement, we build the pond, Wangard builds a 500,000 square foot building instead of a 400,000. And that cleared up the way for other development, the county would realize an additional $134,000 in tax revenue every year once the TID's closed.
That's in this page. I think that was this page.
Well, yeah, it's in my document too, but you're absolutely right. That's the point that the county seems to always forget. They want, the request is for 700,000 today. But forget the 134 forever. That's,
Well-
sorry, Steve, but that's the reason the county's in the shape they're in.
No, Your Honor, and I did say this.
Alderman or
That's-
Supervisor Taylor.
I don't even know if there's going to be a county in 20 years. Okay, so I'm looking at like right now, how does this help the residents in this area now? That 134,000, you're expecting that Milwaukee County and people like me are in office that represent this area. They're saying, hey, let's invest that money at that time in Grove Schmidt and in these other areas. I mean, the conversations that I'm having with elected officials that have R next to their name, there's no sure bet that the county is getting this sales tax, and without it, in 2027, there is no park system. There is no money for senior centers. In 2025, there's no bus service. Not that it comes to Franklin, right? Okay, and we know that, but that's a fact. And that's just Milwaukee County. City of Milwaukee is in way more trouble than we are. If there is a sales tax, a half cent, or is it 1 cent? 1 cent, half cent sales tax, it is 30 years for the city of Milwaukee to solve their problem. 30 years. We're done in 8 because we did pension reforms. We did all those. We did a lot of things Milwaukee refused to do. So the way I look at it is I'm not banking on us being there in 20 years. So that, yes, I do want the money now. So I understand what you're saying, Mayor Olson, but I want it now, and I'm not going to be in office in 20 years. I want to be here when I can help make these things happen. So with all due respect.
Okay, with all due respect, that would seem to me, in the way I think about investing money, to be a waste of money today instead of putting it in the future. But anyway, enough of that back and forth. Alderman Holfer hasn't had a
I thought you were going to be talking.
Thanks, Supervisor Taylor. I appreciate the information. The question is whether we continue or at what point we continue to negotiate this purchase or swap or deal, whatever you want to call it. I guess a couple of questions I would have is if we come through with something, and let's use your numbers, what assurance do we have going forward that that money will actually be spent in Franklin, seeing as it's you and I know one other supervisor? What happens if the county says, hey, our priority shifted? We're not going to do that.
Well, can I answer? It would be, the money would be put in a trust. And what would happen next is we'd get one of our county lawyers, the one that handles parks contracts and that, and our parks department, and sit down with director of administration, city attorney, whatever, and we'd have to draft an agreement that both parties sign off on it, no different than we did jurisdictional transfers. I mean, county did North Cape, St. Martin's, Old 68th Street. I mean, those are road projects that weren't on the 5-year plan that we moved up, and we reconstructed working with engineering, both Jack Bennett and Ron Romice, your predecessors, and did those projects and then did a jurisdictional transfer. So this body and the county board would both have to agree on, almost like a, not a developer's agreement, but all that stuff would be in writing, because I'd want that assurance too. I would want that assurance that that money is spent exactly how I've laid it out, and so would be in an agreement.
And then it's being compared to the Waukesha County Water, at least it's being used as an example. They have a rather lengthy payout on that. Would this be amenable to something like that, or were you expecting all kinds of money up front?
Well, I think when we met, Director of Administration said, when would you need the money? Would you need it all right away? And the answer I would say is no. I mean, there's projects that I kind of listed that you would need some money upfront, so you could do like Groschmidt, we could do right away, and that's probably, 60 grand or something like that, because we can actually build that platform. But I think in doing engineering and designing and stuff like that, especially for trails and mapping things out, some of those smaller dollars, but the actual construction would be, it would probably take a couple years to get that done. When it comes to, let's say, a playground or something in another supervisor's park, which I'm assuming that's what I think what Supervisor Martin was planning on doing, that would have to be planned for, and then that would not be enough. $350,000 would not be enough money, so we would have to then put the remainder of that in the next county budget, the difference, which I'm assuming the executive would do. If not, we put in an amendment. So. To answer the question, you wouldn't need it all up front. I know the talk of impact fees were part of the conversation, that that money could be used towards some of these trail systems if there was easements given in that. So I think there's different areas you could take the money from. But that was just a part of the initial conversation that we had. The next step, if you guys said, yes, let's do this, we would get the right people involved to put that agreement together.
And then the last comment I would have is, if this ended up to be, in my estimation, what I think is in the best interest for Franklin residents, then so be it. I would want to do that. But I'm at a little disadvantage because, again, going back to alternatives, I don't want to just, it's not an either or. I want to make sure that we can explore other options to make sure that we're doing the best value, because we're talking some substantial money now. Originally it started out, hey, if the county would give us this, well, now we're talking $700,000, the cost of construction, all of that comes into play. So I would ask that the council be brought up to speed on what other options are out there. And if there's not options immediately available, what do we need to do to look at them that fits in the timetable that we need to do this?
And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the way that this was laid out, I mean, like I said, we've had conversations, the mayor and I, for months before I was in office. I'm reading this, time is of the essence, and there's A or B. I mean, that's what's there. I mean, if it's not the county, you're basically saying we would have to buy the Biller property, and here's how much it would cost approximately. And I mean, you made this whole beautiful document, this nice, with Franklin in the background, and this was, it's in your packet. This was presented saying why this is the best option, but give us the land. And I'm saying no to giving the land. So if you don't want to spend 7 here, looks like you're spending 6 somewhere else. But if there's a third alternative, you guys need to know. And like I said, that's why when I was putting this together, it was like, well, then what is, if you're not doing, I mean, because one is better than the other. If you know all the money staying in the county and you know half of it staying in your community, for $100,000 more, to me, that's worth it. And that's a decision I would make if I was in one of those chairs. But I don't know any other options that are possible.
Right now, my position would be that I don't have enough information to
Right.
say, let's go forward and continue
Right.
to strike an agreement until we have some time to look at something else.
Mhm. Yeah.
I appreciate that this is being brought forward. I like to see this as a discussion. I also am very impressed by the positive discussion that is going on. The idea for me is, my fellow alderman said, there's a lot of moving parts to this at this point. Number one, I'd like to get a better fix on what the dollar is going to be. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to come up with 700,000, let alone more, if that's what's going to be finally negotiated. So the other thing too, that I'd like to know what the options are too. I'd like to have that discussion. I think I'm not prepared to make a decision. The urgency is there in terms of the development that we're trying to do, but at the same time, I think we have to really look at what we can and can't do. And I think that's where I'm at right now. I have nothing against, I'm going to be very interested to see how this moves forward, and I'd like to know what all the options are in moving it forward. So That's my opinion right now. Thank you for your forwardness with this and time we looked at it.
Alderman Wilhelm.
A whole lot to that. I agree, we need options. Typically, when projects come before, I've seen the county, I've seen the city of Milwaukee do this, they come forward and they have, like the legislative bureau looks at it and they have the financial departments look at it and they give them all breakdown. I would like to see the breakdown that's presented by Supervisor Taylor and with the correct acreage on what we would really have. I'd like to see those costs given to us in a nice optional analysis, and then maybe if there's a third one added to that. I do think that the idea of using this money for matching, it's going to come back to us. So we keep saying, oh, we can't afford to do this, we can't buy this, but I don't know if it can be covered by some of the TID, because it's part of the whole TID infrastructure. But if the money is going to come back to Franklin, we're really not necessarily buying it. We're taking money that we would typically use out of our general fund and use towards the park anyway. So if we don't have to take the general fund money to do match, I don't see how, especially like Franklin Savannah, I don't see without some type of money coming this way, how we're ever going to even develop that park, because nobody wants to put any match toward developing the park. So this would be out there for us. And I think it's a great use for the citizens of Franklin and getting that county money back into Franklin. So I would like to see those breakdowns. I would like to see what our needs are as far as the options that he's presented here, how we could use that for Franklin Savannah, what our plans are for that, and just show us how this would make a difference and how we wouldn't have to use general funds or something, or taking out a loan to match to develop that Savannah property. The only other comment that I have is in this proposal, which was written up, it has a sentence that says the city of Franklin would assume all costs to operate in a stormwater retention basin. I didn't ever agree to that. That is a statement that was put in there, but I would like this council in the future to think about the city taking on the maintenance responsibilities of all of these stormwater basins. We give them to homeowner associations. Small little homeowner associations have the whole responsibility of taking care of their own basins, but yet a massive business park with this kind of value to it. And we end up absorbing the cost of these. Same thing happened in the other business park. And a really good example is what happened in my district around Lowe's, with Lowe's and the Goodwill and what was the Gander Mountain at the time. And the condo association at Riverwood ends up being the stormwater people to take all the maintenance for all of those business developments that, and those people are, those other large businesses are not contributing to that pond association. And so this is the kind of thing we're dumping on our residents. And then we keep saying economic development. So I'd like to reconsider that policy, that somehow that these businesses that make a lot more money can contribute a little bit to that, because we do put out quite a bit for them to come in. Maybe they can help us out a little bit in the future. They're the ones using the ponds, not us.
Your Honor, one thing. You know, when it comes to the money and the timing, if you sell to a private developer, he's going to want the money now. All right. And that's, you can't pay him in impact fees, you know? So that's one. And I'm glad Director of Administration brought that up as a possibility, because that maybe, you know, allows us to do other things together. Because, you know, I sat up there for, you know, over a 12-year period, you know, 10 and a half years. And we struggled on how to spend impact fee dollars. Now, I don't pay attention as closely now as I did when I was sitting in that chair, which is now in the alderman's room. But, so I don't know what kind of issues we are in terms of spending that money, but that is a potential in terms of how to pay for it, so.
So let me manage some expectations here for a minute. I get a sense that this is going back to staff for more information. Part of that, in order to get to the financials, needs to be an engineering analysis. So next meeting, I'll have an authorization to expend 52,000, 47 and some change with Rupert and Milky to do the analysis and the engineering study for that. That will take some time, and following that, we'll look at the finances and get back to the council as quick as we can. Madam Director, you have a comment?
No, I guess I just want to be clear, nothing was buried, nothing was killed. Staff has been working on this very diligently. This has been one of our main focuses for the last 2 years that I've been here. So I just don't want anybody to have the impression that any of what was said was true, because it couldn't be further from the truth.
Mr. City Engineer, anything? No?
So everyone remembers the history. We originally had Elm Road design using an unusable part of a parcel that was, we didn't think anyone was going to use because of the ITC lines. So we decided to move the ATC lines. We considered the county land because that's what we did to the north of it. We built a stormwater pond. We had an easement from the county, and I'd have to go back and check the records, but my understanding was it was almost a donated some sort of thing. So that we thought we would do that again. We didn't know that we had some other options. We looked at other parcels. Well, and next to me, you'll see a proposal from Rupert Milky. The idea is, I call it chamber system. So when I was told that, or when it looked like we weren't going to get the county land at all, basically we talked to county park staff and they said no. And so it's like, what's the option? I didn't like the idea of using Biller's property because that really takes land off the tax rolls for future development. So I came up with an idea. I'll call it the chamber system. If you're familiar with some large septic designs, maybe I'll have some pictures in the next proposal to show this to you. But basically, it's underground detention is what we would do. It sounds expensive, and it is. However, I checked with MMSD using our green funds. I was creative, just like we were on Hickory Street, where I used green funds to pay for those series of bio basins on the side. I was able to confirm with MMSD that anything associated with the chamber system is eligible for reimbursement, which sounds great. I'm not sure how much money we can accumulate in the green fund to pay for all that, but that'll be part of the analysis we'll look at. So even though it's conceptually back of the envelope estimate looks like it's a more expensive project, it is, but the net cost to the city would be much less because we can use MMSD funds to reimburse us for the large expense of the chamber system. So having said that, there's a lot of effort involved in figuring out if that's going to work. And so it's a situation where I've asked Rupert Milky to put together a task order, and as the mayor said, we'll bring it to you at the next meeting and do some further analysis. So anything else you want to know?
Thank you, Supervisor. Is there a motion to return to regular order? Hold on. Alderman Barber.
I guess probably what I'd like to see too, I understand that we could do something next week, but when we do a budget, we sit down and we lay it out, what's going to happen this month, who's it's going to go to, what are the steps. I'd like to see us start looking at the possibility of doing that for these kind of projects, where we would do a timeline and it would be presented so everybody knows what the next steps would be and when it could come to fruition. So step by step would really be helpful when we start talking about these kind of things. And then we can develop a timeline where we would come actually before us again, and we'd understand the steps that are going to be taken. So I just think that's a better way of managing these kind of things, and would hope that maybe we can get to that kind of situation in the future where we do have that laid out.
Here you go. It's right here.
In light of the new world.
Well, it's all in there. Alderman Wilhelm.
It sounds like you're addressing the engineering aspects, but I didn't hear anything that's going to address the park funds and impacts and how that would benefit the city. It's kind of just looking at this strictly from an engineering point of view, and there's another aspect of this which has other benefits. So I kind of asked for a little bit of that, so we could see how we could benefit that way as well. Regarding the comments that were just made about process, in our municipal code, there's a very firm laid out process on how to commence a project and what committees it should go through, and one of them is finance. And I don't really see us applying that process. So that could be a really good way to start looking at that process within our own municipal code.
Okay, let's unpack that for a minute. In order for us to do an evaluation of any parks or any other program within the proposal, you need to know what the proposal is going to cost. That has to be done first. That's what we're going to do first. As to tying it up in committees, we can do that. I don't have a problem with that. So, is there, Alderman Holfer moved to return to regular order. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Nelson. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to return this item to staff for, first of all, for a proposal for engineering services, and to return at the nearest available opportunity with an analysis?
Second.
Barbara and Hofer, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Move on to item G2, extension of the towing contract for 23-24.
Move approval for the towing contract.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Second by Alderman Hofer. Alderman Eichman.
My question, just for clarification, is obviously NNS has an excellent reputation and so forth, but is this an item that would normally go out for bid from other towing companies, or do we normally not do that? I'm just, as I've learned the process as a new alder in my seat, I'm just questioning.
The police chief normally handles this. Yes, it does go to bid typically, but this is a service contract, and service contracts are not required to go to bid.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
And I understand from the police chief, NNS provides excellent service to the city.
Yes, I'll yield. Thank
Mr.
you.
City Attorney, then Alderman Nelson.
With regard to what's in the packet, it doesn't specifically state the prior one-year extensions, only the original three-year agreement. And so my thought would be, with regard to the first whereas in the agreement, that I would change it to simply, instead of simply mentioning that first three-year agreement expiring February 28th, 2021, I would change it to read, whereas the city and contractor entered into a vehicle towing and storage contract dated March 1, 2018, for a period of 3 years expiring February 28th, 2021, comma, and 2 extensions thereof, comma, with the latest extension expiring February 28th, 2023, semicolon, and then in the number 2 point, lower down, where it says this extension would expire on February 28th, 2024. That's a leap year, so that should be February 29th.
Madam Clerk, okay? Okay. Where are we at? That's it? Do you have a motion? Okay. Will the maker add as with technical corrections by the city attorney? I'm going to withdraw my. Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Could we have these kind of comments before motions are made? Because then it might, assist us in making the motions. And it seems like almost every motion I end up making is like adjusted after the fact, and then the item never comes back to council. So we don't see what happens. And this particular one, it's not as bothersome to me as some of the other ones, but I have a resolution out there that I still don't know what it says from the last meeting. So I'm going to withdraw my motion, let somebody else make the motion.
Mr. City Attorney.
I was still writing the subject matter of agenda item G2 when somebody moved and somebody seconded. And that's why you did not hear that previously, and that has been a common practice of late.
I'll move as amended.
Is there a second as amended?
I'll second.
Alderman Barber, Alderwoman Eichman. I have one suggestion. I don't know that we can do this, but we capitalize vehicle towing and storage contract. That should probably not be capitalized because that implies a noun, and there is a business with that name.
With that,
Okay. All right. Alderman Nelson?
It was just to echo that NNS is an exceptional company, and we are making the right choice, and especially if the police chief's happy with it, as I've got personal knowledge with them. They are great to work with, zero complaint, negative feedback, so it's a good decision.
Could we have the motion read back, please?
Madam Clerk?
Sure, I have it.
Gotcha.
Alderman Barber moved to award the towing contract extension to NNS Towing, Inc. for the period of March 1st, 2023 through February 29th, 2024. As amended.
As amended, yes.
Yes.
The attorney.
Mr. City Attorney, this is a simple,
Well, part of the simple nature of it, Mr. Mayor, is that I sent an email, I think this afternoon when I saw this, to the city clerk so that it could appear in the minutes, and then because it would be part of the motion and it would be clear when somebody a year, 5 years from now needs to look back on the records of what transpired at this meeting.
on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Move on to G3, which is an annual market adjustment to wage and salary rates and progress to market adjustments for non-rep employees. Madam Director.
So the approved pay plan from 2015 for non-represented employees includes three parts. One of them is a market adjustment to wages and salaries on a regular basis determined by the council. One is progress to market rate adjustments for those employees who are at certain points below the market rate. And a third is merit performance increases. Tonight, we're requesting to do the market adjustment for 2023 in the amount of 2%, including a progress to market adjustment for those who have not yet reached the market rate for their pay grade. We do have these funds included in the budget for 2023, and all increases are subject to employees earning a performance review grade of at least standard or better. The increases would be effective as of 1/1.
Second.
Alderman Wilhelm.
I want to make a comment on the merit increase section on here, and making it clear that that it says there was not an established approved merit-based plan in place. And I would like to make sure that that doesn't get carried through as, hey, this is where the council said we were going, because sometimes it gets put in there and then it's like, oh, well, you already did that last time. So it's clear that this council has not looked at, reviewed, or has even agreed to and made a motion toward a merit-based program. Is that my understanding of where we're at?
So the last sentence of the merit section says, rather, these funds will be requested for use when the merit program is authorized by the Common Council. The request tonight is for the market adjustment and the progress to market rate adjustments only.
Thank you for that clarification on the record.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's do a roll.
Alderman Hopefar.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
And Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Motion carries, 6 ayes, no noes, no absence, no abstentions. G4 on page, we don't have page numbers. Approval of professional services recruitment for Director of Administration and Director of Finance Treasurer, and approval of temporary services for both positions.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Barber and seconded by Hanneman. We got a bunch of questions, so let's, hold on one second. So we'll do Barber and then Will.
Just one question, just background, I believe. Is the planning managers under circumstances similar to this?
I expect to have an action item for you all at the next meeting. But no, we did not entertain a recruitment for the planning manager. We received, I want to say, 7. We did about, 7-ish, and ish is operative.
So it wouldn't be necessary to include that at this point here.
Thank you for thinking of that. We'll talk about it on the 17th. Alderman Wilhelm.
The second part of the motion, who's the maker of the motion, by the way? Second part of the motion is a little bit unclear on who the mayor is engaging with, and to authorize the mayor to engage with professional services consultants regarding the same. Are you talking about the consultants that are going to be the recruiting agents? Or are you talking about the consultants that will be the temporary consultants? Because it looks like it could mean both or one or the other.
We haven't named the consultant for recruitment because we're still negotiating and evaluating. And we don't have the temp employees yet because we're still negotiating with who we want to contract to get a temp through. But I think you can all understand the nature of these two positions is such that we got to get going. Can't fool around. Not that discussing it with the council's fooling around, but it takes more time. We don't have that kind of time. So this is to authorize me and for the next 23 days, the Director of Administration, to get moving and get us a couple of temp employees and get some consultants getting us some possible replacements.
So the answer to my question is when it says authorize the mayor to engage with professional services consultants means both the recruitment company and who you would hire for temporary.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, I would like that the maker of the motion include that it also follows the policies and procedures under 1020202, which requires that the person that comes back for hiring goes through the same process that all of them are required to under the administration policies. Because that is a council policy, where the council is allowed to possibly have a closed session if necessary. That's the same process we've worked on everything else. So I'd like to, it's just the standard policy 102. It's the same one we always do. It was with Glenn, it was with Callie, it was. Because this one authorizes the mayor to engage more deeply into it instead of like having HR. We don't have an HR doing this. We have, in the council, I don't know, it says you, it doesn't say HR, so.
Well, you can't be, well, yes, you can, but you shouldn't be making blanket statements like that when you don't know the fact. The fact is that no hiring goes on in this place without the direct involvement of the hiring manager, the manager of the department, typically the director of administration, sometimes me, and usually you guys.
Oh, good.
So don't make that statement. Now, let me answer this idea that we should now bring a temp employee, which we never do.
Wait a minute, I think I had the floor, you interrupted, took over the floor, and could I finish my
I
points?
did because you were making false statements.
I didn't make a false
You
statement.
did make a false statement.
I said I wasn't sure because this one had the mayor and it didn't state the HR. That is a correct statement. It does have you, and it does not state in the motion that there's HR. I can't read into the motion that it says that. So I don't see why the council should be cut out of the administrative policies and procedures that we have in place, that we've always done, unless you have some reason why you don't want the council to follow the administrative policies and procedures that are in place for hiring people. So if you can tell us why we wouldn't want to follow the procedure in place and how we're getting around not following the procedure, I would, I guess I'd like to hear that.
Okay, so where do you want me to start? We've got an audit coming up that needs to be prepared for quickly. We've got a sewer rate case, a water rate case, got implementation of the new pay plan. We got year-end close to do.
So point of clarification, Mayor, are you saying that this will never come back to council when you hire these people?
Not the temp.
I didn't.
We're talking about temporary employees
I'm
here.
talking about the recruitment of the people that you're going to hire permanently.
You know, this
is not that difficult.
It is not. That's why I'm wondering why you have such a problem. Of course, the permanent employees come back.
Then you shouldn't have any problem with putting 10202
This does
into
not
the
apply
motion.
to hiring permanent employees.
It
This
says-
only applies to a consultant to go out and recruit and hiring potentially 2 temporary employees. One for the Director of Administration's position, one for the Director of Finance and Treasurers. It's not that difficult. I know that you want to make these things difficult, but it's not. It's temporary employees which are under the purview of the Director of Administration, HR, and the mayor.
Okay, clarification on that. Will the alderman under the temporary employees have the same department head privileges for access under these temporary employees that we have now with the departments? Or will these be these employees will be,
This is going to be a bad 4 months. I can just see it
you can
right
just
now.
answer the question and that's simple.
Is there a second to the call of the question?
Second.
Okay, questions on the call of the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk, roll call, please, on the call of the question.
Alderman Nelson.
Okay.
Alderman Nelson. Alderman Barber. Alderwoman Hanneman. Alderwoman Wilhelm.
No.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hope.
Aye.
On the call of the question, motion carries 5 ayes, 1 no, no absent, no abstentions. On the question, Madam Clerk, please read the motion back if you can.
Alderman Barber moved to approve professional services for the recruitment of a Director of Administration and a Director of Finance/Treasurer, and to authorize the mayor to engage with professional services consultants regarding the same.
On the motion, let's do a roll call here, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Due to no clarification on alderman access and no policy procedures following, I will vote no.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Motion carries 5 ayes, 1 no, no absence, no abstentions. Move on to item G5, which is finalization of the tax incremental finance district number 3 to accept the final the final audit and authorize distribution of the remainder of the funds. And I said this before, I'll say it again. This is why we do tax incremental financing. The numbers here are big and it's important. Madam Director.
Thanks, Mayor. In the council action sheet, you'll see the chronology of what happened with this TID. It has been in place for a number of years, dating back to 2004. Back last April, the council approved closure of the TIF. We talked about what that process entailed, including the Department of Revenue, an independent audit, and then the distribution of funds. The Department of Revenue was notified timely in the middle of April. We have then you actually technically have a year, but they like you to get the audit done in 6 months. We did get that done enough so that they could do the final accounting, and we did that. You now have the audit in front of you. We received in mid-December, and what that audit shows is that there's $2.5 million that needs to be distributed to the taxing entities. The mayor's mentioned, the numbers in the audit, it's much bigger than that. The increment that was generated over time was approximately $23 million. We know what happened in that area with Northwestern Mutual and the taxes that are being brought in on that. That tax increment, that $23 million, will now switch over to be taxes to the general tax base and all of the taxing entities. So this is a very substantial TIF. This is really the best solution or the best outcome that you could get in a TID. A lot of times they don't close so favorably with the increment on board and moving forward in a really strong position. We did have part of our budget included $202,000 from this TID closure that the city's allowed to increase its levy, again, because of the growth, part of the statutory process. Without that, $202,000 worth of items in our 2023 budget would not have been there. So at this time, we do have, as it states in the audit, and I will just point you to page, let's just grab it. Page 5, it's page 51. Is everybody guessing? Just go in your packet. Page 51. And then the audit page is number 5. It talks about all the sources and uses of this TID from creation way back in 2004 until today. Halfway down the use of funds in the middle of the page, you see final distribution, $2,581,526. That is the amount of money left in the TID at the end after all the obligations that have been met that needs to be distributed to the taxing entities. The reason we didn't put the distribution in the packet is because we were still working to verify it was correct. But basically, that $2.5 million is going to be split as follows. The county would receive $546,171.05. MATC would receive $131,166.58. MMSD would receive $189,287.03. The Oak Creek Franklin School District, which is the school district for this TID, would receive $1,109,641.66. And the city of Franklin would receive $605,259.21. So what we're asking for tonight is for the council to accept the audit that you have in front of you, which closes the TID, meets all the statutory requirements, and finalizes the amount of distribution in the amount of $2,581,525.53 and pays those taxing entities their share, as I just stated. And then the only other thing I wanted to add to that is the city's share of that 605,259.21. The council already committed as part of the park purchase in October of 2022 to use $305,628.81 on that purchase. We were pretty comfortable that that's where the amount was going to be when we created the spending plan, talked to the council about it, council was on board, which leaves basically $299,630.40. And I would say that the council should probably consider in the near future what it wants to do with those funds, how it wants to handle that.
Let's do Alderman Wilhelm.
Ms. Stino, on the last year's resolution, it says, whereas all the projects included in the project plan have been completed and all the obligations of the district have been met. And then on the action sheet, it says there are a few known items that will not be settled until the fund, until next year. And that you need to make sure the auditors are amenable to reserving those funds. Did you get an answer for that?
I get an answer for that when I brought this item to the council on April 4th, 2022, and they were, and that's why
Okay.
we did go ahead with that. So I can, if you'd go back to the minutes, you would see that the auditors were, and then if we go back to.
That's fine, that's
page-
what I just need. I'm pretty sure that was how it
Yep,
happened. but-
yep, and on page 5 for fund balance ending, that 390,000, that's exactly what that is. That's a debt payment that's going to be paid in the coming months here in 2023, but it's all defined and everything is all closed up, so there's no questions.
Is the funding that's remaining that we can decide where to go, is it can be used any place? It doesn't have to stay like typically, oh, you have to stay within a mile or half a mile from the TID.
It has nothing to do with the tax
Oh,
incremental
okay.
financing district.
Somebody asked me that question, and I was pretty sure that was the answer, and so thank you for clarifying. That's all I have.
Let's do two motions. Is there a motion to accept the audit as submitted? Holfer and Hanneman. All those in favor? To accept the audit?
It's not required. I put requested because this is a big thing.
All right,
This is a
Madam
big
Clerk.
item.
I'm good with that. Madam Clerk.
Alderman Nelson. Alderman Barber. Alderwoman Hanneman. Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
On accepting the audit, 6 ayes, no noes, no absent, no abstentions, motion carries.
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution terminating tax increment financing District 3 and authorize staff to proceed with the final closure steps.
Second.
Wait, hang on, that's, the council already closed the TID. The second motion is simply to distribute the remainder funds.
Okay, I was looking at the previous one. So the motion to accept the final audit and authorize distribution of remaining funds to all applicable.
We already
taxing
accepted the audit.
jurisdiction.
So it's just to distribute the funds. Accepted the audit. So your motion is to distribute the funds.
Yes,
As
that's what I
discussed.
just read, the second time I read it. Correct.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Aye.
Alderman Barber. Alderman Nelson.
6 ayes, no noes, no absent, no abstentions. If any of you are out and people ask you, why do we do TIFs? You now have $600,000. Actually, you have $900,000 in tax revenue to answer with on just one TIF. G6 is a motion to authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to accept and deliver a 2023 Division of Public Health consolidated contracts to continue funding health department grants. The director is here if you have any questions.
Second.
Well, we're all on that one.
Wow. Popular as
She
that.
wants it, give it to her.
Yes.
Honor of doing this.
You live a
What I
charmed
talked
life,
to
Lauren. A motion was made by Alderman Barber, and I don't know who I'm going to give the second.
I'll yield, whoever wants it. Everybody's happy.
I got news for you. They were, for the first time in your life, they were all louder than you.
Wow.
Jump on it.
So I'll give it to Alderwoman Eichman. She's smiling at me. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. G7 we did. G8 is review of professional services agreement with Franklin and Stantec Consulting. The price is the same as last year, $45,000. Mr. City Attorney.
With regard to the motion on the action sheet,
Hold on one second, Jesse. Okay.
with regard to the requested motion on the action sheet, I would go down to the third line where it says to authorize staff to enter into said agreement. If you look at the agreement, it's not staff, it's per normal. So I would say change the word staff to authorize the mayor, city clerk, and director of finance and treasurer.
Is there a second? Second. Moved by Alderman Barber with the corrections as outlined by the city attorney, seconded by Alderman Holt. For all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. G9 is a temporary limited easement for investigation of the St. Martin's of Tours Church Trail. This is just a TLE to go through and clear some brush so that they can see where the trail goes out on Wilhelm.
I am unclear on why we need to clear brush. Because this first step should be a wetland delineation. You don't need to clear brush.
That's been done.
The wetland delineation has been done.
Yes.
And so I guess I'm trying to determine how we did our alternative analysis financially to take this route. Because when this was before us before, it was actually not even an agenda item. It was just blanket trail on the agenda item. And the discussion was that you and the mayor had gone to the church and did some negotiations and kind of came up with this option because of parking or, somehow it would eliminate parking. But the actual options and the cost has never been before the council. And so this project, is going to cost us a lot of money. Way
Probably.
more than if we just put it down the side of the road like the rest of the trail is. And earlier discussion this evening before the council meeting, you said you didn't know if you were going to put it on the adjacent property owner. So how much are we going to clear cut if you don't really even know where it's going to go?
So Gray, our consultant, has gone out when they did the wetland delineation. So they tried to pick a path based on trying to avoid the wetlands to the best we can and the other issues we can. What that survey did not do was identify where I'm going to call them specimen trees, where the trees we want to save were. So the thought is that we know about where we'd like to go with a corridor, and we need surveyors to get in. And if you try to walk through the woods, it's pretty difficult to walk through the woods, even this time of the year. So the thought was we would go in there, clear out just the things that in a couple of years would grow back and you wouldn't even be able to tell we were there. So we're not going to remove any trees. We just need to make a path through so surveyors and other people doing investigative work can walk through there easily.
Okay. I have the wetland delineation certificate. I let it lapse, but there are countless people that go out and do surveys all over and don't clear the vegetation in order to do that. And so one of my concerns I have with this is very similar to the one over in my district with the 35th Street Woods where, we don't know what's there. We're going to go cut. And there are state listed species there that would be impacted on 35th. We don't know if you're going to be impacting state listed species here. You have no inventory of where you're going, and you don't see a woodland as an intact natural system. You see it as big trees. Well, there's a lot more to a natural resource than big trees. And so I don't understand the impact that has to be done with clear cutting.
It's not clear cutting.
Well, it's, we're going to clear through brush and shall be for clearing small brush and vegetation to facilitate walking through the woods.
Correct.
To me, it's unnecessary. The project itself and the cost, is this actually, have we done a cost analysis on what this is going to cost us compared to going out on the road? I mean, is the council even aware of what we're kind of talking about?
So you ask about going along the road like the rest of the pathway. The rest of the pathway is actually We Energy's property.
Yes.
We Energy's property stops at the south end of the church property, so I can't continue through there. We did have a discussion on should we go out in the street. Don't think that's safe, but it could be done, and for a variety of reasons, it doesn't work with the church either. We had a discussion about snaking around the edge of the clearing to the back of the cemetery. Church representatives that we met with were very uncomfortable with that idea. And so basically we were going to have to just end the trail, the south end of the church property. And then once we got to looking at it and talking with the property owners, I should say the developer on the east side, and I'm still trying to talk to the condo association off of Forest Home. But the idea is we could provide access to those folks too, where they could access the trail, and it seems like a good spot. So I can't tell you exactly what the cost is until we finish doing all the investigative work. We may have to do some short bridges, and I use bridges with a small b, across some very small ditches, or we may divert to go around the south end. You're right, we don't know that, and I can't give you an estimate until I do that.
Yeah, that's my concern, is we're kind of moving forward, spending money, going and clearing vegetation on a path that, are we sure this is what we want to do? Because we could simply take the sidewalk that's existing and turn that into an asphalt trail. It is an option. It may be.
It is an option that, again,
and
the
it-
representatives we talked to, it's not a good option.
And it would be, it would serve the same purpose and save the city a whole lot of money. So I guess somehow we're sold on this already. I don't know. I guess I need the district alderman to discuss that a little more, but I'm just looking at the cost, and this is going to be extremely expensive. It looks like you're going to cross 2 creek crossings, and if you have to do that, well, you have to do an alternative analysis with the DNR, and if they come up and say, what's the alternative analysis, and you say, well, we could put it on the sidewalk, and you say, that's,
Grafe has been talking with DNR throughout, and you're right, they do want alternative analysis, but they have to get out and do some investigative work to provide that information.
Alderman Holtford, then Alderman Nelson.
How big is this path? Are you talking about a machine and 4 or 6 feet wide cutting a path, or are you talking
So-
a guy with a chainsaw?
So again, this is not the path. It's just really a corridor, so we can, you can't walk through it without having to diverse, take wide detours, if you will, just to walk through the woods. So the path itself, when all is said and done, we'll come back here for construction, we'll come back here for permanent easements and so forth. The path is expected to be 10 foot, and the entire width of the easement is expected to be 18 to 20, probably 18.
My question is, for your exploratory purposes, how big of a path are you going to cut through?
Not any bigger than we have to. We have a Bobcat with a little grinder on the front of it, and that's what we would go through. So 6 to 8 feet-ish, thereabouts.
Is there any concern that might create somewhat of an attractive nuisance that people would go by, oh, they cut a path through the woods and now you get people walking through there?
I would suggest to you that there are already people walking back through there, and the thought is that the kinds of brush we're clearing, they'll grow back, and in a couple of years or even next summer, you probably won't even be able to tell we went through.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alderman Nelson.
Just a few things, and I talked to Mr. Morrow prior to the meeting about mailing out the notices and the dates, so that's, and the basically the route of which is going to be mailed out. Did you just want to repeat that?
Sure. So we're talking about 2 things here, but they're both in the same council action item. The 116th Street Trail, we're going to have a public open house. It's February 5th. It's a Thursday night. And then we're going to mail out the invitations on or about January 16th. There'll be little postcards we provided. Basically, everybody on both sides of 116th Street, everybody on both sides of Ryan Road, and includes the Mayor's Drive subdivision.
So that'd be Thursday, February 2nd would be the open house? Thursday, February 2nd, because the 5th.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so
Because
Thursday,
as you know,
February
my
2nd.
birthday's the 6th.
Okay.
As you know.
Yeah, of course I knew that. It's on my calendar. And then, so as far as the St. Martin's Church, will not be a public meeting per se, but I'll be at the church in between all the masses to talk to the parishioners regarding what the pathway could be through, because they still have to make a decision, a final decision on doing a pathway. So Thursday, February 2nd will be an open house here at City Hall. Sunday, February 5th for the parish parishioners will be at the church.
Okay, and right now, who's negotiating with the church? Who here is direct negotiation with the church?
So I guess that would be me. But the negotiation, I mean, we haven't talked any money. We're going to talk about, or last time we met, I was going to go and talk to an appraiser, get an idea, and they'll probably talk to an appraiser too, and we'll see if there's what the price difference is.
Now, are these sit-down meetings where you presenting appraisals and you're going back and forth? I guess my point is this, is if it is that I would like to be involved, I want to be more in touch
Sure.
with this project because it is going to be something that's going to be a big deal to the neighborhood.
By all means, I'll invite you next time.
Thank you. I yield.
Just like, the Spellman trailers, I mean, we have a lot of conversations with residents and companies and before it comes to common council.
Alderman Wilhelm.
So at the last meeting, and it's on the record, you said that you and the mayor were doing the
He was there at the last meeting, yes.
Okay. And so, but the alderman of the district wasn't there. It was you and the mayor and whoever.
No, Alderman hasn't been to any meetings.
Okay. So is it my understanding that there'll be a suggested payment to buy an easement now instead of city right away? Now that will be an added cost that,
That's typical. It's customary. When you take an easement from someone, you buy it for,
okay. And so will you be, didn't sound like you were planning on including the clear cutting in with the neighborhood meeting
no.
of the, so are
Clear cutting's
are you
the-
going to do the clear cutting before you have the meeting?
Two
with
separate projects.
The alderman?
Excuse me, once again, we're using a pejorative term to describe an activity that's intended to be not a
Okay,
negative.
you're right. I
You're saying
apologize.
clear cutting.
Okay.
And
I will correct that, Mayor, if I can have the floor back. That would be a point of clarification.
If I could answer your question, we've met with the church, I would guess probably 4 or 5 times out in the field and walked through it with the representatives that the church has put forward. This is, and Grafe, and this is talked about where it could possibly go. But they're 2 separate projects. 116th Street's a separate project from the St. Martin's Church. They just happen to be connected.
Well, it seems like we're moving down a path of negotiating easements, removing vegetation to set up a path, and yet we're not working through the alternative analysis with the DNR, and we're spending a lot of money moving forward before we know about
And that's
the
the
alter-
direction I've been given before.
process.
That's the direction Common Council's given me before.
What was to sort of look at it, negotiate it, yeah, but I didn't know that the council had made a firm decision one way or the other, because we've never been presented any other option. It's pretty much, hey, here it is, so.
I don't remember the date, but last time we talked about trail projects in general, this was on the list and I was given direction.
in fact, I have attended these meetings. I will tell you all in this room, except for Paul, that the congregation of St. Martin of Tours is always looking for new members. And that's the reason I was there. I'm the mayor and a member of the parish. The pastor asked me to be there. So if any of you have a problem, go talk to the pastor. As for clear cutting, not doing it. And the reason that we have to do it is because the church asked us to do it so they could visualize a little bit about what a path looks like and where it might go. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That makes
Grafe also needs to do it.
So,
There's multiple things that have to happen.
so
here.
and when,
This is not, Glenn, this is not as simple as a path down a right-of-way for Wisconsin Electric. I don't know how many of you have been involved in negotiations with a church. I know Ed has. It's herding cats. We've gone through 2 pastors at this church working on this deal. You know, Alderman Wilhelm, you say, just run it down the sidewalk. How do you handle funerals? How do you handle masses? How do you handle weddings? Not used as a bike path. No, that's irresponsible. So the request is very simple. We're not spending money on clear and brush. DPW is doing it in between other projects. We have the equipment, we've got the men. Certainly, we're spending some money with Grave, but that's all part of the package. So, is there a motion regarding this matter? Alderman Nelson.
So,
Hold on, John. Okay,
well, I'm going to ask, just because, as you said earlier, it's the season. I do have a question. I understand you belong to that congregation. I understand, it's crystal clear the position you hold here. I would like to make sure that everything is done, no innuendos, but we are going to do everything obviously above board so everybody knows where we're at. No animation, no animation.
John, again, you're insulting our
No
staff.
animation from you.
Again, you're insulting
And
the
again,
staff.
you're interrupting, and again, I have the floor.
I-
So, thank you for
can't-
interrupting. Can I finish?
can't let you insult the
Can I
staff.
finish, Mayor?
Please don't insult the staff. Go
I
ahead.
didn't insult the staff. I'm talking to you directly. I said that you're a member of the congregation. Great. But now you're going to negotiations as also the mayor of the city. I want to make sure everything's out there, and that's what I'm saying. And then you chime in and you go into attack mode and you try to divert all the attention. Stop. I'll make the motion, but I would like to be involved in this as the alderman to be made aware of things as this proceeds. That's my motion.
On the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. For the record, I encourage Alderman Nelson to be a part of this.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. G10, we need to reschedule the file. Oh, we don't need to do February, right? Because that was for primary.
We're going to have a primary because state judges.
Okay, we will have a primary on the February 21st. So is there a motion to reschedule those two meetings to the February 20th and to April 3rd? That would be really unusual.
We are actually.
The motion was made for the 3rd and the 20th. Let's vote on that motion and see where it goes. All those in favor of the motion of the 3rd and the 20th, I'm sorry, the 20th and the 3rd, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. G11, we want to do some additional work on this document for you before we bring it to you. You want to talk about it? Peggy?
Without going.
Right, right.
There's.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it should. There's some points. Or advised for. Well, there's some timing.
I know where the city attorney's going. I think we're okay to move it to the 17th. Is there a motion to table the 17th? Alderman Wilhelm, seconded by Alderman Nelson. This is one of those instances where we want to provide the council with additional information, not less. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. License Committee recommendations, Alderman, who's doing it? Alderman Hanneman. So if I had that information.
All right, as we go down the License Committee agenda. Minutes were approved with corrections on item 6. New operator Maslarov, recommend approval. New operator Futakio, move to approve. The committee reviewed and considered police incident reports from June 1st, 2022 through December 27th, 2022 for Class A and B establishments. Item number 5, the fireworks display process. We voted to send the draft ordinance with recommended changes to the city attorney for review and comment. And item 6, review and discuss extraordinary events. We will hold that over until the next meeting or until the clerk can set up a special meeting for discussion on that.
I have a question on fireworks display process.
Yes,
City attorney reviews it, then where does it go?
it goes back to the committee where we will review it against a proposed new application form, at which point the committee would present that to council for discussion and possible approval.
There is no motion yet. Alderman Barber.
Would it be all possible for the council to see the incident reports as well? Would that be made available for us?
Absolutely. Send the files over on the.
Rather than copying, would you mind just contact your clerk's office and go sit in the conference room? We don't need to kill more trees, do we? Okay. There's a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Eichmann.
They're not clear cutting.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Move on to item I. Is there another one? Item I, motion approving city vouchers and ending dated January 2nd, 2023, an amount of $2,868,288.71, and property tax disbursements with an ending date of December 30th, 2022, in the amount of $11,500,000, and payroll dated December 30th in the amount of $454,768.36, and payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $436,211.39 plus city matching payments. An estimated payroll for January 13th estimated at $505,000, and payments of the various payroll deductions estimated at $300,000 plus city matching payments. And approval to release temporary investments to ADM in the amount of $9,500,000.
Question?
Motion by Alderman Holfer. Is there a second? Then Alderman Barber.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Barber. Alderman Barber.
Going through this, which is, a lot of fun reading, what is all the bail amounts to different municipalities?
Those are done through the police department based on arrests and different things like that. So it's part of the process. So they have to pay to,
And what happened? We pay? We disperse it back? Is that?
so it's to the jurisdictions, the other jurisdictions.
Right.
So it's a pass-through.
Oh, just a pass-through. Okay.
Moved and seconded. Madam Clerk.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Motion carries 6 ayes, no noes, no absent, no abstentions. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Barber and Holfer, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.